it comes to Book Club 2, what you get is a lighthearted, funny, and beautiful portrait which uses The Alchemist as a catalyst for almost everything that's in the plot. So to summarize the film, after the pandemic, people having heart attacks, getting retired, and even the death of a cat, Vivian, Diane, Sharon, and Carol have weathered many a storm, and now with Vivian recently getting engaged, there's the idea that perhaps they should go to Italy. Carol's the one really driving this idea since the pandemic took out her restaurant, and since it was one of her last happy places, she wants to join her friends in going to this place, especially in light of Vivian's engagement, which nobody was expecting. Now, originally there was some hemming and hawing about it. When it comes to Vivian, she had to wait until a sign came up. Diane, as always, is very pensive about doing anything. And for Sharon, she had a cat at one time that she was worried about, but once that cat died, she was on board, and everybody pretty much pressured Diane into going. But that aside, one of the things that the ladies are trying to do is just not have necessarily eat, pray, love type of experience, but definitely just enjoy themselves. Drink a little bit, reminisce about the old times, make new memories, and just celebrate their friend finally finding the kind of love that breaks their hesitation about the idea of a relationship, never mind being somebody's wife. And of course, added into that, there's some lighthearted drama, many comical moments, and just an overall experience that allows you to just be entertained and not necessarily have to dive deep into anybody's feelings or situations. As for why the Book Club 2, the next chapter, is rated PG-13, there is a lot of innuendo jokes throughout the film, so dialogue-wise, that's something you have to look out for. Violence-wise, the ladies get robbed, but it's not like gun-pointed robbed, they just foolishly give away their luggage. So, if you want to call that violence, that perhaps qualifies. As for anything else that can be involved, sexual content, outside of the aforementioned innuendo, there's not really anything that's like dirty. You may get certain scenes that show that someone definitely had sex in terms of like ruffled hair or something like that, but otherwise, you're good. And in terms of miscellaneous, there's drinking. So the first highlight when it comes to Book Club 2 is just seeing love at any age. For with Vivian and Diane being past 60 and yet finding love, Vivian perhaps for the first time finding someone she could really commit to, and Diane finding new love after her husband passing away, it's notable. And then when it comes to Sharon, in the first book club, everybody else was finding love, romance, or rekindling their relationships while she was kind of just there. But thankfully in this film, she gets to have her little special friend in the form of Guzman, who is not only attractive when it comes to her, but also, he's smart, matches wits, and really tickles her more than one way. And of course, I can't forget Carol with Bruce, who did suffer a heart attack, and that makes a little bit overprotective, but you can recognize in her expression of love that none of this is about control. It's about her wanting to stay with this man, and perhaps we're seeing what Diane went through in terms of the death of her husband. She doesn't want to live that, and she wants to hold on to the man that she loves for as long as possible. But one thing I definitely want to put before I move on to the next topic is what I also really love about how love is shown is that no one's really like complaining or venting about their partners. It's all pretty much positive things, and with that, Book Club 2 really pursues something different, refreshing, and I would even say hopeful in terms of not just long-term romance, but romance when you're an older adult. The next highlight for us is the innuendo, and that's because, as we saw with Betty White and many others, anytime an older adult is being politically incorrect, if not outright dirty, there always will be something funny about that. And even though, some of them had kids, dated, lived their whole life, somehow, even with you acknowledging that, the idea of a senior citizen talking and joking about penises and sex still remains comical. And thankfully, when it comes to Book Club 2, it isn't necessarily a comedy so much as Vivian may joke with Carol about doing something with an Italian ex, even though she's still married. And overall, I would say that The joke between friends makes it so everything feels more natural since this film is not trying to be a comedy, and that allows it to not go into a gratuitous or crude route. The last highlight is that what we get here is very lighthearted drama. Yes, Bruce had a heart attack. Yes, Sharon is still dealing with being retired, losing her cat, and, being forced into this new chapter of life where she has so much time on her hands, which of course the pandemic didn't help. Carol also, I forgot to mention, though I did in the summary, lost her restaurant, which was part of her dream. Vivian is in love for the first time, and that comes with certain anxieties and even insecurities, so there's a lot to explore with these characters, but it never goes to the point where you feel like they're trying to get accolades out of this, or else they want to really show why someone got accolades in the past. What we get here is a very balanced film. It knows how to keep things light, yet also, even though these women are very privileged, because being able to just drop things and go to Italy is definitely not something that most common people can do, but even with that privilege, you can see the pursuit of Book Club 2 wants to have you see that these women are still very much human. That yes, they have wounds, they have things that they're dealing with, things that they've been pushing away, or else rather kicking down the road, but they're coming to a point where they recognize some of those things, they can keep doing that, but others, they need to address it here and now if they want to be able to enjoy what life they have left. Overall, when it comes to Book Club 2, the next chapter, it feels like an unconventional sequel since it doesn't push a need to justify its existence. It doesn't try to escalate things to the next level. Yet, even with that said, it's hard to imagine not having this story now after watching it, for just thinking about what was left over with part 1. It almost is like without part 2, things would be incomplete. And granted, when it comes to Sharon, she still doesn't have a significant other. She just has her friend group, but who knows? Maybe down the line they may produce a part 3 where Sharon gets to have a man like Guzman and to be for more than just a trip.